Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vasundhara Blessing Foundation Power Talk Series. Uh, I am being connected to this platform for the very first time. I'm thankful to Dr. Sunita and Gauri for making me acquainted to this platform. And I'm in awe of the Power Talk series that have been happening on this platform. I've heard of green HR, green marketing, and this time they have come up with a very different concept, not everyone might be aware of, but which is of vital importance in today's world, and that is sustainable finance. We have an eminent speaker with us today, Mr. Ravi Valecha, CEO, India Factoring and Finance Solutions Private Limited, who would be enlightening us, guiding us what this sustainable finance is, and we would be having live interaction with him to know more about this topic. Let's know a little more about our speaker, Ravi Valecha. Mr. Ravi Valecha is associated currently with India Factoring, and prior to that, he has experience working with HSBC ICICI Bank. He's a professional banker with 20 years of experience and has rich and insightful experience in banking with expertise in corporate and retail banking, business development, product development, and credit. When he's free, not working as CEO, he prefers guiding management students to pursue ahead their career. I welcome on behalf of Vasundhara Blessing Foundation, Mr. Ravi Valecha, on this platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Srishti. Pleasure to be connected and pleasure to be on this show.
Same, sir. So the platform is all yours. We would like to hear from you about this rising hot concept, sustainable finance.
Thank you so much. So to begin with, I think recently concluded Glasgow event by the world's who's who, topmost countries who had participated in the Glasgow event. The most, the outcome of that was that how do you do look for the future from the sustainable point of view, sustenance point of view, the environment point of view. And that's where there is an emergence from, even from a finance point of view, what we call an ESG initiatives or sustainable finance. When we are talking about ESG, it's basically environmental, social, and governance part of it. So what does it basically mean? Is it in a sense that, when we are talking about reducing pollutions at the global level, reducing emission levels, having sustainable development. Of course, development is required from all perspectives because the human nature is such that we progress from on the science level. There is a development initiatives required. There are infrastructures which are required. However, it comes at a cost. Now, obviously, we know that in Mumbai itself, for those who are in Mumbai, or any other developed city, the buildings or the skyscrapers have not come from nowhere. They have come, huge infrastructure has come up, and that has been on the back of possibly reduction of some green cover or erosions, whatnot. How do you manage a balanced growth is something which the global leaders talked recently about the Glasgow, and where they took various initiatives to curtail the pollution levels, to curtail the emission levels, and other development initiatives also. Considering that finance is also a lifeblood for all the economic activity, how do you bring in this sustainable finance into the development initiatives is something which we are going to talk about. And so just to give you a perspective, the apparels which you are wearing, very nice, colorful. Sunita ji is wearing nice green color, and Gauri was said wearing some shade. So obviously, these are the shades or the dyes which we are wearing, right? And these dyes, believe me, these are the most pollutant, heavy metals related colors, not at a cost at the price point of view, but at a cost from an environment point of view. So obviously, a very simple example for garment manufacturers. How do you ensure that these chemicals are not leached out? How do you, because they are ultimately blended into a water solution where a plain garment is put in and kept overnight or possibly few hours, and then what happens to the residue is something which we need to know about. Uh, so the companies, the manufacturers as such, they are moving towards more and more green initiatives today by ensuring that these dyestuffs are not released into the open. How do they do that? Is something by controlling the effluent treatment or possibly treating the discharge from their plants before it goes out into the system. So that's all about sustainable. Now, how do we ensure that that is related to the finance part of it? So obviously, there is a growing information about from the finance point of view also that when the companies, when the bankers or when the financial institutions are assessing the credit applications, they assess these requirements also. This is very simple example which we could mostly relate with on the garments because all of us are wearing different colors of hues of garments. And most important that it does not go out into the normal waters, it does not go out, let out into the rivers or the lakes or whichever. We have seen the instances in Bangalore specifically where in winters there is a foam formation or something. Even in monsoons there is a foam formation. So all these are an effect of the effluents which are being released. So that's where there is a growing movement that how do you control these discharges. And this is one example. Similarly, on the pollution levels, most of our electricity today is coming from thermal powered electricity generation. How do you move towards more sustainable part of it? How do you move towards solar energy or a wind energy or an hydro energy? How do you move towards that? So, from a banker's point of view, uh, we take these initiatives and assess these whether the companies whom we are actually lending, they take these initiatives. We insist upon our business guys or the teams who are working in the forefront to source more positively on these aspects. If it is a garment manufacturer, we insist that the due diligence is done on these aspects as well. Most of our requirements insist upon that we check the pollution is under control because any industry is generating some sort of a pollution. How what they are releasing. There are local authorities in most of these industrial units or industrial development cities or MIDCs or GIDCs or whatever you call it. There, the authorities issue a license whether the pollution is under control. So we do insist upon these checks to be done. And if the company, if the manufacturer is not following the requirements, and obviously this gives us a red flag that yes, there could be an issue if the company is not following the regulations, then it becomes a riskier proposition. So that's what we insist upon. Obviously, there are many more examples, and these are very small examples I'm using about. Think of an infrastructure, a huge project coming in, or a bridge, or a dam being created. Especially the most hazardous and most conflicting initiative is a dam creation because it has a tremendous bearing on the ecology and the possibly the surroundings ecosystem. So all these needs to be considered in a very detailed manner, and that's what we call about a sustainable finance. And that's what we have started doing it in our own company, and more organizations today are insisting upon and following upon as a part of their due diligence, so that when we finance, when the bankers finance, they are financing a green initiative or a sustainable finance, which does not end up impacting the environment in a negative manner. That's on the environment front. I'll give you a couple of examples on the social front also. So what's all about social is I see many women being there on the session today, which is very empowering. We are mostly in cities, metropolitan cities. However, if you travel across to the tier two, tier three, or possibly even lower down the order, you'll see the women are not so empowered. So they are not included in all aspects of activity, economic activity. While of course, in a very small manner, they might be running a dhaba or something on the roadside, possibly, or working in the fields is something very primitive, which we know all about. However, there is a growing tendency by the manufacturers and many companies to employ women in these manufacturing units. When I'm talking about these manufacturing units, I'm not talking about some coal plant or an iron ore or something like that where there could be a labor conflict. However, these women, possibly the garments which you are wearing, it requires fine handling, and most you would be surprised that many of the manufacturers in India, they employ women, local women labor who are working and stitching these garments and putting across through various stitching processes. Uh, so that's an empowerment because they get financially independent. When women get financially independent, they have a control over the house, they have a control, and they are independent, and they have independently making decisions that how do they use that money which they are earning, because we know that when they are dependent, there can be misuse by the other family members. We have known all those things, we have studied so many things about these aspects. uh, how do companies lure them, because you know that women are also required to take care of the family. These, very simple things like, if you have kids, they set up a creche or a play area for the kids of these laborers in their factories, giving them the living quarters as well in certain areas, providing them pickup and drop services as well, and many a times they end up having employees from the possibly near about 50 kilometers within the manufacturing plant. So these are the initiatives, the social initiatives with the local corporates end up offering. I can give you a very small example. I was very impressed by manufacturer exporter in the apparel segment who set up a plant in Jharkhand, or was it Chhattisgarh, very remote area. The development is possibly 10 times or 100 times lower than what you will see in the metropolitan city. And I did a plant visit there, and I was very impressed that the local women are being empowered by providing these initiatives because it brings them possibly to the next level of the development. So this is on the social aspects part of it. And so I would say a financial inclusion part of it, what we all read and hear about more and more now. This is one initiative and you would be surprised that many global buyers, the brands which you wear, the brands, whatever you call it, the big brands and Nikes, the Marks and Spencers and likes and all those things, they end up insisting that you do not have forced labor, you do not have these child labor, or you are having these compliances. So these are the initiatives which we also end up considering in our financials when we do the due diligence of the companies. So in a sense, this is all about sustainable finance on all aspects, be it on the environment front of it, be it on the social part of it, and on the governance part of it. Governance being basically being transparent, being open, being disclosures. We know that tax evasion is something which is a predominant thing in the company. So this is the new paradigm being said that the companies disclose, the financials are disclosed. We have a huge positive by way of the GST, which has been implemented over past few years, which has made a lot of transparent processes being there. There is a little possibility of tax evasion. So in a sense, this is what we are talking about, the sustainable finance being done by and incorporated in their due diligence by the customer, by the bankers and the financial institutions, which will ensure a overall growth of the economy rather than the economic growth only in the metropolitan cities or in the large cities. It goes down to the last level of the development. So in a sense, that's all about it. Thank you so much.
That was indeed a great eye opener, I believe, for each and every person being participant of today's session. I have opened the forum also for our audience to put up their questions. I have a few questions to check with you to even enlighten myself, and I believe others would also get some information. We talked about ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, and you touched upon each one of them. So you talked about the textile industry. You gave example of clothes, the color and dyes. Are there other industries, other companies which needs to follow ESG, or are they following? Can you help us understand?
Definitely. There is a growing momentum of moving towards EV, that is electric electronic vehicles, right? From the fossil fuel based vehicles to the electric vehicles now. So what does the electric vehicle require? The most important part is the batteries, right? And batteries, as we know from the very simple ones, which we end up using in our possibly torches or all those things. These are the pencil cells or what we talk about, to the high levels ones, which we end up using in our laptops or even mobile phones, which we end up using. The technology has possibly grown tenfold from the pencil cells, which we used to use earlier, to the ones which we are using in our phones. And likewise, the batteries which we used to use in our cars and or vehicles, the lead acid ones has moved to a new level altogether. Now, when we are talking, and however, but these batteries, when we are talking about, these were, a support requirement. When we are talking about even the current vehicles, the fossil fuel based vehicles also have batteries, right? But they are doing only a small part of possibly helping in the start for the lighting purposes and other electrical purposes, right? When we are talking about EVs, they are in an altogether different world when they are actually powering the vehicles, right? So that's a huge, development, I would say, over past 5 years. It could be past 10 years also, but the past 5 years has picked up the trend, and possibly, I would say, next 10 years would be a completely paradigm shift will be there in the development of the batteries. There are a lot of new R&Ds happening, and as we go about, there will be a lot of R&D towards more lighter, more effective, more powerful batteries, which will happen. So from the finance point of view, definitely it's all about financing these new initiatives and possibly providing them the working capital finance or the project finance, or to come up with these new initiatives. You would have seen e-rickshaws in some places being there. Now the scooters or the bikes are also EV. So all these are about, this is a new sector which we are talking about. Remote places, if you would have gone similarly in possibly some hill stations or far away nice mountain places, I'm sure you would have seen some windmills in the top corner somewhere or the other. Now this is a huge, from far they look nice and pretty, but when you are going close to it, they are huge infrastructures, possibly a 30-floor structures, and each turbine requiring these minute parts. We have many of our customers who are actually supplying material or equipments, I would say, not only from the frames point of view, but these wind turbines end up having many critical equipments inside to enable the power being generated, be it from the turbines, small components. We have many customers who are supplying to these wind energy groups also across the world, enabling more sustainable electricity. And so I gave you examples of a couple of these electricity part of it. There are definitely on the garments part of it, the vehicles, electric vehicles part of it. And likewise, any chemical being produces some discharge, if that effluent treatment is done before the discharge. So it's, I would say, sector agnostic or industry agnostic. The sustainable finance is across industries. Not only from a manufacturing point of view, I would even say from a service point of view. In our organization itself, we have diverse in whatever best manner possible. Our HR head itself is a woman and an empowered woman from that point of view. So it's all about giving I would say power to the women, and so that's on inclusion part of it, or being a social initiative part of it. And likewise, there will be definitely other industries who would be providing these sort of initiatives. So that's the wide verse. I would say a whole entire web or world is available for all these development or sustainable finance point of view.
Perfect. I believe you have made a clear demarcation that what seems on the outside might not be the inside. So sustainability is the future, and we have to do something to take our life ahead with being sustainable. There's a question which is coming here, and you just talked about women empowerment. Kunal Jain is asking that women empowerment, we talk about empowering them, but nowadays we still see the biggest challenge being the equal pay. Does ESG, does it include equal pay to women also?
Definitely, definitely. I would say that, while I cannot generalize, this is a trend which has picked up. When we are talking about, 20 years back or maybe 30 years back, you would have seen possibly very few women you read who are on the top echelons of the corporates, right? Now, today, 30 years hence, in 2021, you see a lot many women. There are a lot many women working across industries, working across sectors at the initial stage of their career. Once kids are there, possibly many of them leave. My own wife quit, okay, to take care of the family. However, there are many who have support system and who can develop and grow in their careers and end up providing a better working environment, and possibly the equal pay part of it is something which I call is a next ladder for the women also. First thing was to at least help them come in, right, to the segment or to the operating segment. The next stage is providing more initiatives to the women. And the next stage comes is the providing an equal pay. This pay disparity is not only in the corporate. I would say, even if you read Invest, this corporate disparity has been there across industries, even in Hollywood, Bollywood, or whatever you call it, even in industries, everywhere there is a pay disparity across there. But definitely it is being addressed, and addressed in the right manner, I would say. For everything, there's a time and place, and I see it's going in the right direction.
Perfectly, beautifully explained, Mr. Ravi. Kunal, I believe your question has been answered well. Next question for you, Ravi. Uh, you talked about India factoring that it is taking initiatives with respect to ESG and sustainable finance. Can you enlighten us more so that we can get live example with respect to sustainable finance and ESG at India factoring?
Perfect. So I give you an example of the government manufacturer who went in to set up a plant in a remote location somewhere in Jharkhand, where he employed possibly 80% of the employees in the factory who are stitching garments being manufactured or stitched by the woman labor force. And believe me, these garments I'm talking about are being manufactured for the top brands across the world. You name a top brand, be it Marks and Spencer, Zara, or any top brand H&Ms to the world, and whatever brands you talk about, they are manufacturing at the possibly a tier 10 city, a woman who may be less empowered compared to the people who may end up actually wearing that garment. So we finance those customers also. We finance the wind energy component manufacturers who end up supplying to the wind energy manufacturers. We provide finance also to the EVs in our scheme of things. We are providing finance to the fertilizers and the chemical manufacturers, where we insist on the effluent treatment being done in a fair manner. So all these sectors we end up providing in the ecosystem. Hope that helps.